Free agents are supposed to be the bargains of the summer. No transfer fee, just wages and a signature. So explain this to me. How are some of the biggest names in world football sitting at home in late July with no club to report to? Today, we're looking at 7 free agents struggling to find a club and exactly why nobody's signing them. Let's get into it. We have to start with the one that still doesn't feel real, Mohamed Salah. The Egyptian king is without a throne. After 9 legendary years, Salah and Liverpool agreed to end his contract a year early, and he said an emotional goodbye in May. This is Liverpool's 3rd highest scorer in their entire history, a man with more goal contributions than any player for a single Premier League club, and someone who racked up 57 goal involvements in a season as recently as 2 years ago. And before you say he's finished, he isn't. He managed 12 goals and 10 assists in a down year, and at the World Cup only 6 players on the planet created more open play chances than him, every one of them playing more games. He dragged Egypt to the last 16 and nearly knocked out Argentina, the eventual finalists. So why is he unemployed? Because his move collapsed in the most dramatic way possible. Salah had reportedly agreed a deal with Besiktas worth around 10 to 12 million euros a year. The club had already signed Leandro Trossard and wanted Salah as the crown jewel, with fans chanting his name at other players' unveilings. And then it all fell apart. Besiktas' own president went public, claiming Salah had said yes, but that his agent then raised his commission demand to roughly 35%, calling the figure unbelievable and pulling out. Reports in Turkey put the demand at around 7.5 million euros. So here's one of the greatest players of his generation, aged 34, stuck in limbo, not because of his legs, but because of his agent's calculator. Talks are reportedly back on, but as of today, the king remains clubless. From a legend to a cautionary tale, Jadon Sancho. Remember when this man was the most exciting young winger on earth? At Dortmund, only Lionel Messi was involved in more league goals from ball carries across his 3 big seasons. That form earned him a £73 million move to Manchester United, and it's been downhill ever since. 12 goals in 83 games, a public fallout with Erik ten Hag, and loan after loan. But here's the crazy part about why nobody will sign him. It's the wages. Sancho was on around £300,000 a week at United. Chelsea had an obligation to buy him for £25 million, and they paid a £5 million penalty just to get out of it because he refused to lower his salary. And this is a player who delivered for them, scoring in the Conference League final itself as Chelsea lifted the trophy. Aston Villa also declined to sign him permanently after their loan, even after he won the Europa League with them. Think about that. He won silverware in back-to-back seasons at 2 different clubs, and both handed him back. He's 26, gifted and radioactive because his price tag doesn't match his output. Dortmund want a 3rd reunion, but only, in their own words, if the finances can be agreed. Sound familiar? Sticking with England, here's a name that shocks people. John Stones, a Manchester City great, a World Cup squad member for England just weeks ago, where he proved he can still play at the top level. One of the best ball-playing defenders of his era, comfortable at centre-back, right-back, even midfield, and he's free. So what's the catch? One word: injuries. Stones is 32, and his recent seasons have been a stop-start nightmare of muscle problems. Chelsea and Arsenal have both been linked, but nobody's pulled the trigger because signing Stones means guessing how many games his body has left. Clubs love his passing, they just don't trust his hamstrings. It's a brutal way for a champions market to die. Not on ability, but on availability. Now to Germany, and the man who priced himself out of everything, Leon Goretzka. 8 years at Bayern Munich, 7 Bundesliga titles, 3 German Cups, a Champions League, a Club World Cup. He even played for Germany at this World Cup. And he wasn't a passenger last season either, 5 goals and 3 assists, and among Bayern players only Kim Min-jae made more interceptions. Yet since the 1st of July he's been a free agent because his demands have scared off an entire continent. Reports say Goretzka wants a €7 million net salary, a €10 million signing bonus, and a contract running to 2029. He's 31. AC Milan spent months negotiating and had him as a priority. The deal collapsed over that bonus and his agency's commissions. Juventus have now re-established contact and tabled a huge offer, but nothing is signed. And here's the irony: Goretzka joined Bayern on a free transfer from Schalke in 2018, one of the great bargain signings. 8 years later, he's trying to cash in the same trick one more time, and the market is telling him the loyalty card doesn't cover those numbers anymore.
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favourites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. The deal runs only until the end of May. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.
Speaking of pricing yourself out, meet the king of the category, Dusan Vlahovic. Juventus paid around 80 million euros for him. He scored 68 goals in 168 games, hitting double figures in all 4 of his full seasons in Turin. And they still let him walk away for nothing. Why? Because Vlahovic was the highest paid player in all of Serie A, 12 million euros net a year, a figure reportedly bigger than the entire annual budgets of Empoli, Lecce and Verona. When renewal talks came, he demanded to keep the same money, and club legend Giorgio Chiellini summed it up brutally. With these figures, he won't remain in Italy. Now, here's a proven striker who scored 12 goals in an injury-wrecked 26-game season, sitting unsigned. The adductor problems scare clubs, the wages terrify them. Besiktas have made contract offers, but reports suggest Vlahovic is playing a waiting game, holding out in the hope that Barcelona come calling as Robert Lewandowski's replacement. It's a game of chicken with his own career. If Barca blink, he's a genius. If they don't, he's a very rich man with no shirt. Now one for our African fans, Franck Kessie. The Ivorian warrior who once scored 11 penalties in a single Serie A season for Milan is back on the market after his Saudi adventure with Al Ahly. And unlike some names on this list, he just proved himself at the highest level, at the World Cup. Only one Ivory Coast player completed more passes than Kessie, and only the superstar Yan Diomande won possession more often. He's still just 29, so why the hesitation? Because Kessie carries the Saudi question mark. He's been out of elite European football since leaving Barcelona, and clubs quietly wonder whether 2 years away from the intensity has dulled the edge. Plus, players returning from Saudi wages rarely come cheap. Juventus have been the strongest link, and there's talk of a reunion with his old Atalanta boss Gasperini at Roma. Somebody's going to get a bargain here. The question is, who's brave enough? And finally, the one that might start a war, Lorenzo Pellegrini, Roma's captain. 62 goals and 58 assists in 349 games. Since his first Roma goal, only Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Mario Pasalic have scored more among Serie A midfielders. He lifted the Conference League in 2022 and was named Player of the Tournament. Yet after 9 years of service, he's gone, and at 30, with his best football coming in, flashes rather than full seasons lately, the elite clubs haven't come running for a classic number 10 in a market obsessed with youth. But here's the spice, the strongest link, Juventus. And Roma are already furious with Juve for snatching Zeki Celik just as he was about to renew. If Juventus now sign Roma's beloved former captain too, that rivalry goes nuclear. So there you have it. 7 proven, decorated footballers, all free, all unsigned, and not one of them because they can't play. It's wages, it's injuries, it's agents, it's pride. And that's the harsh lesson of the free agency game. Being available for nothing means nothing if the package around you costs a fortune. The market doesn't pay for your past, guys. It pays for what it thinks you'll do next. So tell me, which of these players would you take at your club and which would you avoid like the plague? Drop it in the comments, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. Catch you in the next one. Bye.